Hey, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Mesechus Zevachim, Beis Amud Aleph. It's my first time doing Zevachim, so I guess I'll learn as we go along. But Zevachim talks about different korbanos, animals and fowl. There's another Masechta that talks about the korbanos mincha, the meal offerings, flour, oil, etc. That's menachos. But we'll learn together, and we'll try to get as many of the concepts as we can. Zok the Gemara, Mesechus Zevachim, Beis Amud Aleph. Hurry up. Kol azvachim shenizbechu shelo lishman ksherin, ela shelo olu lebalim l'shem chova. Chutz min hapesach v'yachatas hapesach bizmano v'yachatas b'chol zman. So any zevach that was brought shelo lishman, as Rashi says, shenishchat ola l'shem shlamin, kosher. It's still kosher to do the rest of the avoda. Let's stop here for a second. Now, if you don't learn Amud Beis, you don't know what it's talking about. Rashi seems to imply in Amud Beis with three words. On the bottom left of Amud Beis, Beis Amud Beis, it says L'shem Zevach. The fourth wide line in Rashi on Beis Amud Beis on the bottom. L'shem Zevach. Until I got to this, I didn't know what he's talking about. L'shem ma shehukdash. So we have to understand this. Simple understanding is back to Beis Amud Aleph. There's a few steps. We know that there are four steps when it comes to, well, we don't know, but we will know that there are four steps when it comes to a korban. There's the shchita, there's the kabbalas of the dam, where you collect the blood, then you walk over to the mizbeach, the holacha, and then there's zrika on the mizbeach, then also you go ahead and you burn the different parts, etc. Now, before you do any of the shchita, seemingly what you're doing is you're setting aside a korban. We've spoken about this before. You make it hekdesh, you set it aside for a certain thing. So it sounds like what's happening over here is you took a korban, and just using Rashi's example based on the Gemara, you set aside a korban as a korban ola. This korban I'm going to set aside as a korban ola. And then when you actually brought it to shecht it, you said, L'shem yichud kutz abrichu shchinte korban shlamim. And you shechted it. So says the Gemara, says the Mishnah, Kol azvachim shenizbechu shelo lishman. That's what makes it shelo lishman. It's not lishman, it's not l'shem, what you had originally set it aside for. So you shechted it for a shlamim, even though it was set aside as an ola. Ksherim, it's still kosher, says Rashi. Lizrog daman, ulahaktir emorehem, v'lechol es hane'echalin, avi shemitzvasan l'shochtan lishman. It's still kosher to do the rest of the avodas of an ola with. It's interesting, it says v'lechol es hane'echalin, which implies that there are parts of an ola, again, I'm assuming we never learned Zvachim before, there are parts of an ola sounds like that you can eat, because he's saying you can do the rest of the avodah as if it was an ola. You go ahead and you have to do the rest of the dam, you burn the stuff, you eat the rest as it was an ola, even though you shechted it l'shem shlamim. Ela shelo alu l'balam l'shem chova. It's not alu, don't get confused, ola. It's not alu for a chova. That means you needed to bring an ola. If you promise to bring an ola and you bring it l'shem shlamim, you still owe God an ola. So you still owe him an ola, you still got to bring another ola. But this korban you can still finish the avodah with. It's still kosher, you can eat it, this and that, whatever the halacha of this specific korban that you brought, or that you wanted to bring, you can treat it as an ola, it sounds like. You're not treating it as what you tried to treat it as. You treat it as what it was originally intended for. But l'maisa, you still owe God an ola. Chutz min ha-pesach v'achatas. Except for a pesach and a chatas, which Rashi says are pasol lagamri, and you can't do anything with. It means you can't eat them, you can't finish the avodah with. Ha-pesach bizmano. Rashi says, Pasol l'shelo lishmo, kol zman shchitaso dahainu mechatzos hayom shel erev pesach ad erev. Avakodem lachen v'achar miken kaimelan de pesach b'shari mos hashana shlamimhu v'chol dino kishlamim. So what do we say? If you have a korban pesach, you set it aside. You know you have to set aside the korban pesach, right? So you set it aside, and now it's time to bring the korban pesach. It's from chatzos and on erev pesach. And you bring the korban pesach, and as you're bringing it for whatever reason, you say l'shem yichud kutz abrichu shchinte shlamim. So in that case, the korban pesach specifically, we're going to be more machmir, and it's going to be pasol. Again, no korban that you do shalol lishman is going to be ola. You're still going to owe God whatever that korban is. So for sure, you owe him the korban pesach. That wasn't a question. The question is, can you now go ahead and finish the shlamim, and can you go ahead and can you throw the blood? Can you eat whatever's left over, etc.? Says a Gemara by korban pesach, no. Everything is pasol. You're done. You still owe God the korban pesach, obviously, but everything is pasol, all the stuff. And also, he says by a chatas at any point. If you're supposed to bring a chatas, and instead of bringing a chatas for a sin, you come along and when you're shechting it, you say l'shem yichu kutz abrichu shchinte ashlamim. It's pasol. You can't eat it. You can't throw the dam. You can't do anything. Obviously, again, you don't have to say that it doesn't count as a chatas. No korban counts as the thing you originally intended for if you have the wrong intention when you're doing it. But the chiddush by korban Pesach on Erev Pesach and by chatas any other time is if you do it shelo l'shem the korban Pesach or the chatas, then l'maisa it's pasul. You can't do anything else with it, and the entire thing goes in the garbage. That's the Mishnah. Rabbi Eliezer Omer Afa Asham. He adds an Asham as well. HaPesach bizmano, he agrees. Ve'achatas ve'asham b'chol zman. Rabbi Eliezer, achatas ba'al chet ve'asham ba'al chet. Ma achatas psula shloshma, ve'asham basal shloshma. So he just adds one thing to the Tanakama. He says, just like if you set it aside as a chatas, and then you bring it as a shlamim, the entire thing is pasul, and you can't do anything, and you still owe a chatas. But not only do you still owe chatas, which is pashut, your prior thing is pasul, goes in the garbage. Same thing would apply by an asham. If you go ahead and you have an asham, thank you. If you go ahead and you have an asham, anybody want a coffee? No. It wasn't brought l'shem zevach. It was brought l'shem whatever. So if you go ahead, thank you. I don't want thank you. If you go ahead and you bring an asham as well, what's an asham? As we'll see, a chatas is brought for a regular sin that was done. Asham is brought for a few specific sins. So since it's also brought for chatayim, if you bring an asham, again, if you set aside an asham and then you bring it l'shem shlamim, you shacht it. Again, when I say bring it, I mean seemingly, as we'll see in Daf and Beis, you shacht it l'shem something else. You shacht the asham l'shem shlamim or ola or something, then that's going to be possible as well. So those are the exceptions. In general, if you set it aside, every single korban that you shach for the wrong reasons will not be ola for that korban that you originally intended. You'll have to still owe God a korban, but at the very least, you'll be able to throw the dam and finish the avoda and eat it. With the exception of korban Pesach and Erev Pesach, if you shacht it for the wrong reason in the garbage, so too a chatas and an asham, if you shach them for the wrong reasons, for a shlamim, for an ola, etc., in the garbage. Says the Gemara, Yosi ben Choni Omer, Hanishchatin l'shem Pesach u l'shem chatas psulin. So he goes ahead and he adds things. He doesn't take away from the Tanakama, but he adds. We were talking about in the Tanakama, if you have something that was set aside as a korban Pesach and you shecht it for something else. You have something that was set aside as a chatas and you shecht it for something else, it ruins it. He adds that not only that, if you have something that was set aside for something else and you shecht it l'shem korban Pesach, or you shecht it l'shem chatas, then that's going to ruin it as well. As opposed to the Tanakama who says you have the korban Pesach set aside, or you have the chatas or asham set aside, and you shecht it for something else, it ruins it. Not only that, if you have something else set aside, if you have an ola set aside and you had shechted it for a shlamim, you still owe God an ola, but you don't ruin the entire korban. But if you have anything set aside and you shechted either for a korban Pesach or for a chatas, then you ruin the entire korban. Says Rashi, Anishchatin l'shem Pesach, Kol sha'ar zvachim shenizbechu b'yud dalid b'nisan l'shem Pesach. That's b'yud dalid b'nisan specifically. If you shach something l'shem korban Pesach on Aleph ER, doesn't mean anything and it's still kosher. Again, you still owe God whatever you were supposed to intend for, but it's still kosher. Oh, shenizbechu l'shem chatas b'chol zman, anytime you were supposed to bring an ola and you shechted l'shem chatas, then not only is it not going to count as an ola, you can't eat it, you can't do anything with it. B'chol zman psuchim ki hechi de'inu psulin l'shem acherim. Says the Gemara, Shimon Achi Azariah, man. Rashi explains he's called the Achi Azariah because he had a setup with him where Shimon would learn and Azariah would pay him. So that's why it's called Achi Azariah. Zak the Gemara. What? What happened? Zak the Mishnah. I'm sorry. Shimon Achi Azariah Omer, Shachtan l'shem gavoha mehen ksherin, l'shem namuch mehen psulin. He had something else. If you shech something for something greater than it, it's actually going to be kosher. If you shech something for something that's lower than it, it's going to be pasul. We'll have to see if he's being more machmir or more mekel. What's an example? Ketzad. Katshe kachim sheshachtan l'shem kachim kalin psulin. So that would seem to be a chumrah. Because we just said that if I shecht an ola l'shem shlamim, it was set aside as an ola, and I shecht it for a shlamim, it's not going to work as an ola, but it'll still be able to treat it as an ola, and I could still burn it, etc. Now he's saying, though, again, we're not giving the exact, but if theoretically a shlamim is lower than an ola, then if I shechted, then if an ola I'm supposed to set aside as an ola. If a shlamim is lower than an ola, and I shechted l'shem shlamim, then I ruin the entire thing, and I can't even use it or burn it or anything. If I lower it when I shecht it l'shem kachim kalim, it's going to be pasul. Kachim kalim sheshachtan l'shem kachem kachim. But if I set it aside as a kachim kalim, and when I shecht it for shelo lishma, but I at least have in mind a higher idea, ksherin, then it's kosher. What's an example? And again, he might agree with the Tanakama and he might disagree. Ha-bechor ve'ha-maiser sheshachtan l'shem shlamim ksherin, shlamim sheshachtan l'shem bechor l'shem maiser psulin. So he's clarifying that this whole idea of shechting something for something else, again, given, don't get confused, we'll say it 100 times, you were not ola for the Baal. Whatever you bring, if you brought it to Shelo Lishman, it doesn't count. You still owe God whatever you were supposed to bring. The only thing we're discussing now is, can you continue the avoda and finish it up? Can you throw the dam, or do you have to throw the dam? Can you eat the food? Can you not eat the meat? That's the only question. For sure, you still owe God whatever you were supposed to bring Him. So now the question becomes, is it going to be kosher? When we say kosher, that means, will it work to be able to finish the avoda, or maybe you have to finish the avoda, not clear. Or can you eat the meat, or do you have to eat the meat? So if it's something that's kachim kalim, like bechor and meiser, if you do it l'shem shlamim, then for sure it's going to be kosher, and l'meiser you would finish the avoda. But if you have shlamim, which was set aside for shlamim, and you shecht it for bechor or for meiser, then you're lowering it because that was a kachim, and this is a kachim kalim, and therefore once you shecht it l'shem the bechor or the meiser, you ruin the entire thing, and l'meiser you can't do the avoda, you can't eat it, etc.
I'm sorry, I'm getting confused
okay.
about whose intention is what. So there's the owner's intention and there's the Kohen's intention.
So the Kohen doesn't have to do the shechita. The owner can do the shechita. So we're assuming, again, it's my first time learning Zvachim, my first time learning the Mishnah. But what I'm assuming over here is that it sounds like you're talking about the owner had the intention where he set it aside for an olah, and then when he shechted it for shlamim. If the Kohen had the wrong intention, then that would be a whole other discussion, seemingly. That's not, I would say it's not my problem, but that's a question. But it seems like I'm the one having the intention. As we'll see, the intention might not be in my mind. It might actually be something that I say with my mouth. But right now what we see is that if I set it aside for an olah and I shecht it with the intent that it should be a shlamim, then l'maiseh I ruin it, and it doesn't count as an olah, but I could still continue the avoda and eat the meat, etc. That's what the Gemara, that's what the Mishnah seems to be talking about. Zak the Gemara, Lamali lemisna Ella shelo alu listni velo alu lebalim l'shem chova. What are you teaching me by telling me kol azvachim shenizbechu shelo lishman are still going to be kosher? I can still finish the avoda. Ella shelo alu lebalim l'shem chova, but they don't count, and you still owe God whatever you were supposed to bring. What do you mean Ella? It should say velo, and they don't count. What's Ella? Ella seems to be saying that we're excluding something. So what's the Ella? Rashi says olam ishana adam letamido derech ksara. You should always teach the easier thing. If you could do va versus ella, you should do the va. So what are we teaching by the ella? Hakamash malan lebalim hu delo alu l'shem chova aval biktushasayu kaime va'aser l'shnuye behu. It says no. What it's teaching me is that ella, it's only Rashi she'ein b'hem shum yerida ella osa levada. The only thing you ruined by doing it shelo lishma is that you can no longer count it as being fulfilling your ola. However, b'ktushasayu kaime v'aser l'shnuye behu su shnuya achrina. You can't go ahead and do another change. Lavod achas mishar avodas lecharchila shelo lishma miumavar v'shina kosher. This line seems to be teaching us a few things. It sounds like it's kosher lizrog daman, and again, it's not clear, but it sounds like one has to continue the avoda. And you shouldn't think that since you ruined it originally by having the ola and doing it l'shem shlamim, now when I throw the dam on the mizbeach, I can have in mind l'shem shlamim as well. Or when I burn it, I could have in mind l'shem shlamim. I set it aside as an ola. Just because I messed up and shechted it shelo l'shem ola, I still have to do the rest of the avoda l'shem what it was originally set aside for, l'shem ola. Ella, the only thing that I can lower it in, or that I'm supposed to, but the only thing that changes about this is that it doesn't count as an ola. But for all intents and purposes, I need to treat the rest of the entire process as if I didn't shecht it shelo lishma, and I need to go about the entire process as if it was still an ola, even though, again, at the end of the day, I'm going to still owe God an ola. That's what it's saying, Ella. This is the only thing that's going to be an exception. Everything else is going to stay the same. That's what the Mishnah is teaching you. Says the Gemara, Kidirava, Uchidirava de Amarava, Ola sheshachta l'shelo lishma, like we gave an example, that's why Rashi gave this example. Ola that was shachted l'shem shlamim, aser lizrog dama shelo lishma. You can't say, okay, whatever, now I'm just going to throw it l'shem this, or l'shem that, or l'shem my parents, or l'shem my family. No, still needs to be thrown l'shem an ola. Iba yisem asvar, iba yisem akra. There's a svara and there's a kra. That once you mess up, you still have to finish the right way. Iba, you say svara mishum deshani ba kolhani lishni ba velizol. Just because I messed up and didn't have the right intention, I did one thing wrong. So now once I mess up once, I can mess up 100 times? No. I made one mistake. I went ahead and I shechted an ola l'shem shlamim, but now I got to finish the entire thing as if I didn't make any mistakes. That's the svara shabo, that you can't start doing other things. The pasuk shabo, Iba Yisei Makra, is a pasuk says, Moses vasacha tishmor, vasisa kasher nadarta l'shem elokecha nedava. That which comes out of your mouth you have to watch, and you should do that which you made a neder for Hashem, a nedava. Says the Gemara, hi nedava. What are you talking about nedava at the end of the pasuk? Neder who? It's a neder. You made a neder. What's the difference between a neder and a nedava? Neder, Rashi says, is the amar harei alai, taking something upon myself. A lot of yesodistic things here. Nedava is harei zu. Neder is I take something upon myself. Nedava is that I make something into something else. Harei zu. So I understand what's the Torah talking about when it says Motzeis v'secha tishmar v'sisa kasher nadarta. You have to do the neder that you took. L'Hashem elokecha nedava. It's two different things. The neder and the nedava are two different things. It should have said kasher nadarta L'Hashem elokecha neder. Says the Gemara, Ella im kama shenadarta asita yehi neder. If you follow what you were supposed to do, it stays as a neder. V'im lo nidava yehi. And if you don't do what you're supposed to do, it still stays a nidava. Unidava mishari l'shnuyeh ba. So too over here. Don't think that just because I messed up the ola and I made it a shlamim, so now it becomes nothing. It was a neder, an ola. But now, again, I'm going to bring an ola. This becomes an ola. Now when I bring the shlamim, or when I shechted the shem shlamim, I don't make it into nothing. I don't make it into hefkervel, and now I can do whatever I want with it. I make it into a quote-unquote nidava, where now it's a shlamim. Well, not really, but now we treat it as still an ola, and therefore it's not exactly a perfect proof. Because again, Rashi, if you do it, again, you said you're going to bring an ola, and you do a lishma ola, then it stays as an ola, and it counts as an ola. V'im la, but if you bring it as a shlamim, yehei nidava, ki'ilu hisnadafta lezeh nidava acheres, v'lo l'shem harishona, unidava mishari l'shnuyeh ba v'chema derachmana kari nidava, mishari l'shnuyeh ba hamrinam perak sheni asa l'chashev b'chashev yolim kar d'lo l'chashev. V'hachi medrash koi motzis tzachah tishmar v'asisa, az yeh neder asher nadarta, v'im lav nidava. What's interesting is that it comes out from this Rashi that it sounds like to me, please, I appreciate comments. It sounds like what it's saying here is not that it stays in Ola, it sounds like it becomes a Shlamim. Again, if you have an Ola that's set aside, and now you shecht it for a Shlamim. So what do? So now you might think what? Now it definitely doesn't count as an Ola, but it's kosher as a Shlamim. And that could be going back to what Rashi was saying in the beginning. It sounds like what Rashi here is saying is kosher as a shlamim, that now this animal becomes a shlamim, right? Because it's not a neder anymore, but it's still a nedava. Therefore, you can't just go ahead and do whatever you want with it. You still have to treat it now as if it's a shlamim. Now you go ahead and you treat it as a shlamim. It doesn't count as your ola, and that makes more sense, actually. It doesn't count as your ola, but now it counts as your shlamim. I think that's what Rashi was saying. Ksherim in the second Rashi, lizrog daman, ulahaktir emorehem, v'lechol esan echalin. Avisha mitzvasan l'shachton l'shman, k'diyalef bigmar. Even though there's a mitzvah to do a lishma, down to the bottom Rashi of Albek Juseo Kaime, Su Shenir Achrina Lavod Achas Misharvodas Lachachila Shloshma, Mim Aver Vishina Kasher. So it sounds like you can no longer be mezalzelit. Again, it sounds like what we're doing here is that we're changing it now from the status of an ola to a shlamim. Now you have to treat it as a shlamim. You have to do whatever you would do with a regular shlamim. You have to go throw it on the mizbech for shlamim. You can eat it like a shlamim. It counts as a shlamim. It doesn't fulfill your obligation as an ola, but it counts as a shlamim. Again, it doesn't say it here. We're only in the beginning, but I wonder if you had to bring a shlamim as well, if it would count to use it as a shlamim another time. But that's not what we're discussing now. But Lamaisa, the point is that it still keeps its kedusha of a shlamim. It keeps a kedusha, and you have to continue the process, but it will not be ola as an ola. Zok the Gemara. Amalei Ravina le Rav Papa. Lohavis gaban beorsa betchuma becharmecha. You weren't with us in the morning yesterday. You were outside of the Tchum on Shabbos. You weren't at the place called Becharmecha, and therefore you didn't hear Rava give the following drasha. I guess they spoke about different things than we speak about Shabbos morning. De Rami Rava Mile Mal Yisa Adade, because Rava in Shabbos morning in the drasha, he asked a kasha from Zvachim. V'shani lo, and he asked it. My Mile Mal Yisa, what were the drasha that he gave, the problem that he gave? So this is something new. Tnan. Kol azvachim shenizbechu shelo lishman are going to be kosher, except again, if we clarify kachi kachim to kachi kalim, pesach, chatas, exceptions. But the general rule is that you do it shelo lishma, you take an ola l'shem shlamim, it's still going to be kosher, even though it doesn't count as an ola. Taima de shelo lishman. Hastama alu nami lebalim l'shem chova. Alma stama nami ki lishman dami. What does that mean? Read the Mishnah. Kol azvachim shenizbechu shelo lishman is ksherin. That sounds like I set it aside as an ola, now I bring it as a shlamim. L'shem yichud kutsha brichu shchinte shlamim. If I do that, then it's going to be a problem. It's going to be shelo alu lebalim. It's still going to be kosher, becomes a shlamim, but now it's shelo alu lebalim. What does that imply? That implies if I set it aside as an ola, and I bring it, and I don't think anything, which is what we usually do. We just go ahead and do things stam. We don't have intention. If I don't have any intention, then it works. Stama is going to work. L'shem yichu kucha brichu, nothing. It's going to work. As long as I don't ruin it, it works. Says the Gemara, there's only one problem. This is what Rava's kasha was. Uminhi, we have a kasha. It says, Kol ha-get shenichtov shelo l'shem isha pasol. Any get that was written not for this woman is pasul. What does that imply? That if it was written stam, then what?
Also pasul.
One second. Kol ha-get shenichtav shelo l'shem isha pasul. A get that's written not for this woman is pasul. What does that imply if it's written for stam?
Maybe okay.
It implies that it's fine. It implies that if I go to the thing and I go to the keychain rack, which has gets on it, and I'm looking for the one that says Ruvain divorces Leah, perfect. I'm Ruvain, she's Leah. I don't like her. Let me pull it off the rack. I can use it. That's what it implies. But we know ustama nami paso. Yeah, we know that we don't make that diuk. The Bryce over there says Kol haget shenichtav shelo l'shem isha paso. Using the diuk that you want to make in our Mishnah, Kol azvachim shenizbechu shelo l'shman is ksherin. But lo alu lebalim l'shem chova, that implies what? Only if it's dafka shelo l'shma is it not going to work for the baal. But if it's stam, it's going to work. But you can't make that implication because we know that by get we don't make the implication when it says the same exact words. Plug in the words and says kol azvachim shenizbechu shelo l'shman. Kol get that were written shelo l'shman, it's going to be pasul, which implies that a get that was written stam, Ruvain divorces Levi from Ruvain divorces Leah from Thornhill. You have to adapt to the times. Ruvain divorces Leah from Thornhill. Ruvain from Thornhill divorces Leah from Thornhill, and you just go into the store and you buy a stam get. So what happens? You would think it would be okay. Yet we know that the halacha is that what? Stam and nami pasul. Therefore, you clearly see from get that you don't go ahead and make that diuk, and over here you're making that diuk. So what is it? Says the Gemara, Vishani zvachim bistam lishman omdin. Isha bistama lav legerushin omedes. No, there's a difference. The difference is that when you have a zevach, so you already, and this is again why it makes sense, you set it aside as an ola. So if I do nothing further, what's the status quo of this thing? It's an ola. So if I don't have anything else in mind and I do it stam and I shecht it stam, we can assume that you had in mind an ola even though you had nothing in mind.
What word do you say when you're
nothing? So you're not saying anything. So now you set it aside as an ola. No, hareza ola, you set it aside as an ola. And now, lamaisa, when you shachti, you just bring it to the thing. You don't talk to anybody. You just come and you just shachti. You don't say anything. Stam, that's what it means. You don't say anything. You just shacht it. I'm here for a korban, and you shacht it. So that would work. But an isha would be different. Because an isha, hopefully, when she gets married, we don't assume that the second she gets married, now she's up for divorce. Her status quo is what? Her status quo is a married woman. So if you want to change the status quo, you need to go ahead and do a lishma. That's what the point is. By us, to keep the status quo, it could be stam. But there, the status quo is married. Therefore, if you buy a get stam, it keeps the status quo within married. That won't work. In order to get rid of the status quo, it needs to be lishma. So over here, in order to get rid of the status quo, it needs to be shelo lishma. Or otherwise, we assume that it was la'ola. That's the difference between a woman and a korban. One of the differences between a woman and a korban. Okay.
You're getting shafted.
I'm not doing so well today. Okay. I think I like Oreos better. I don't know. Okay, so Anyway, if there's a woman watching this, so then okay, I have other problems. So Zak the Gemara, V'shani Zvachim Bistam Lishman Omdin, Isha Bistam Alav Legerushin Omeda. So that's the difference. That an Isha, you have to take her out of the category of being a non-divorced woman, quote unquote, even though she's obviously always eligible for divorce. You have to assume that she's not a divorced woman. Therefore, to take her out of that, you need to go ahead and make it Lishma. But in a Chanami, in general, by a Zevach, once you set it aside, Lishma, so you can assume the rest is Stam. So now the Gemara says, Uzvachim b'stama ksherim inalan. But now you still have to prove to me, fine. So the diok, you can't bring a kasha from get, and we're good to go with that. But now the question becomes, Uzvachim b'stama ksherim inalan. How do you know that Zvachim are going to be kosher b'stam? That means you can't bring a kasha from get, but why should in fact it work b'stam? Says the Gemara, Eilim behaditnan. If you learn from that which it says, Kol azvachim shenizbechu shelo lishman, v'lo kitani shelo nizbechu lishman, gabi get nami aktani kol aget shenichtav shelo l'shem isha pasol, v'lo kitani shelo nichtav l'shem isha pasol. Again, if you want to say that you can make the diuk from our Mishnah, you can't make any diuks from our Mishnah, because as we just showed, you can't make a diuk from our Mishnah, because by get, you would make the same diuk, and it's not true. So again, we're trying to establish, we've already said you can't ask a kasha from get, it's different, which is interesting, but in terms of how do you know the basics, it means you still have to know. It's one thing to not ask a kasha, but you still need the basis for the rule. So the basis of the rule, you can't say it's based on a diuk, because you clearly can't make diukim, because you clearly see that by get, if you make that diuk, it's not a real diuk. So what's the basis for the rule that lemaisa you're allowed to do it stam? Elamehadinan, ketzad lishman v'shalo lishman. So this is a Mishnah, I believe, on Yud Gimel Psachim.
Here.
No, it's here. Right, Nuntat and Yud Gimel. So this is a different case, and this is an interesting case. And again, this is why you need to have the clarity of this Rashi. Until I did the whole daf, I didn't understand what this was talking about. But now when you see that Mishnah over there, what's happening over there? And we'll see it's a little bit different, and that's why it's going to be different. Says the Gemara, Didnan, Ketzad Lishman v'Shalo Lishman. There's a case there where you start Lishma, and you end Shalo Lishma. What happened? L'shem Pasach. You started the shchita l'shem Pesach. Hareini, muchan, and mezuman, l'shach, this korban l'shem Pesach. You start shachting it, and for whatever reason, in the middle of the shchita, you do it l'shem shlamim. So over there, it says pasol. It doesn't work l'shem Pesach. Taima de amar l'shem Pesach u l'shem shlamim. What does that imply? The reason that it's ruined is because what? You started l'shem Pesach and you ended l'shem shlamim. Ha l'shem Pesach u stama kasher. But that implies that if you start l'shem Pesach and you end stam l'shem nothing, it's going to be kasher. Ama staman kilishman dami. There you have a proof that what? That if you do something stam, you keep whatever was originally. Says the Gemara, Dilma shani hasam de amri kola osa al das rishona hu osa. You can't bring me a proof from there. Because what's the case over there? The case over there is a different case. You're trying to prove from there that if I start the shchita l'shem Pesach, and the diuk over there is that if you end the shchita l'shem shlamim, it's pasul, which implies that if you start the shchita l'shem psachim and you end it l'stam without any intention, it's kasher. So you see over here that if I set it aside l'shem ola and I shakta l'shem shlamim and I shakta l'stam, it's going to be kasher. That's not a good diuk, because what's happening over there? Over there, it's all within the shchita. That means over there, we're not talking about setting aside. Over there, we're talking about you started shachting l'shem Pesach, and in the middle of the shchita, you stopped having kavanah, you started daydreaming, right? We know, unfortunately, we start having kavanah. Like I always give the example in Shmona Esrei on Shabbos, when you start going like this in Shmona Esrei, and everybody's looking at you, why are you doing saflanu? And then you pretend to be reaching into your pocket to pull out the tissue or whatever, and you pretend that your heartburn, whatever, and you start rubbing your heart. We've all done it before. So what's that? So we had intention at the beginning of Shmona Esrei to do it l'shem Shabbos, but over here when we start going like this, because we lost concentration in the middle, right? And we pretend that we're taking out the tissue, whatever, because we're embarrassed. So over here as well, you start the shchita l'shem Pesach, and in the middle you stop thinking. So we want to prove that that proves that what? That if you start something for this, then stam works. That's not the same case. Because over there, at least the shchita started l'shem Pesach, and the rest was not l'shma, it was just stam, that'll work. But you can't prove to our case where you set aside an ola, and then when you go ahead and you do the shchita, the entire shchita is stam, where you have no intention even in the beginning of the shchita. It's two separate things. It's one thing to set it aside for this, but to say that from there I can prove from the fact that half a shchita will make the entire shchita good, even though the first half was lishma and the second half was stam, you can't prove that if I set something aside and I have no kavanah for the shchita, that the shchita would work. That's what we're trying to establish now. We're trying to figure out what the basis is that if I set aside a korban for an olah and then I shechted stam, it'll work. You can't prove from the fact that I shechted the first half for a Pesach and the second half stam that's going to show that if I set aside an olah and I shechted stam, it works, because here at least I shechted the first half l'shem Pesach, and the fact that the second half was stam, okay, we'll go after the first part. Second thing was, one second. Elami Seifa, or maybe we can learn from the Seifa that what the opposite. You start Shalo Lishmanu Lishman. You start L'Shem Shlamim and you end L'Shem Pesach. It's puzzle. One can argue time Adamer L'Shem Shlamim L'Shem Pesach. Maybe it's because you started L'Shem Shlamim and then you ended L'Shem Pesach. It's not going to work L'Shem Pesach. Hastamo L'Shem Pesach Kasher. But maybe if you start the Shchita Stam and you end L'Shem Pesach, it will work. So therefore, over here too, what we see that stam works. Says the Gemara, Dilma Shani Hasam D'Amrin an Yochiach Sofo al Tchilaso. The Gemara says over there as well, no, you can't bring any proofs, because since half of the shchita was done l'shem, the right thing, and the other half was done stam, so l'maisa we're going to say it works. So the Gemara is saying you can't bring me any proofs. Again, we're trying to figure out if I set aside an olah and now I shech the entire thing stam without any intention, we said it works. That was our diuk in the Mishnah. It's different than get. Because we said a stam zevach is for what we set it aside for. We're trying to prove that that's true. Do we have a precedent, another brisa that says that? So we try to prove it from the brisa that says, well, if you start the shchita lishma, l'shem pesach, and you end it stam, or if you start it stam and you end it l'shem pesach, we see both of those things work. Says the Gemara, you can't prove anything from there. Those cases are different. There, at least within the actual shchita, at some point, whether in the beginning or the end, you had l'shem pesach. So then if half of it was stam, so it'll still work. But that doesn't prove that if you have something that was set aside as an olah, and then the entire shchita was done stam without any intention, it's going to work. That's not true.
What do you mean by it works? Are you still chayav to bring it again, but it's kosher? Or do you...
One second, we're back in it. No. Again, we gave it as a given already. Don't confuse us. The given is it never will fulfill what you need it to do. When we talk about kosher, we talk about kosher. Is it kosher or not? Not that it works. Is it kosher? Correct. Is it kosher?
It's kosher, you can eat it, right?
Kosher, it doesn't work. Though. You have to bring
No, 1 second. You're confusing me. 1 second. You're confusing me. We're talking about the top of this daf, Beis Amid Beis. We're trying to figure out if you do it stam, it will be ola l'shem malim. That's what we're trying to figure out here.
Okay, so
no, it will work.
Completely.
Yeah, of course. Of course. We're talking about shalol lishman. It's still kosher. We said in the Mishnah that if you do it for the wrong intention, it's still kosher. It's just shalol alu. The question is, will stam even go the next step and be alu? So we said it implies in our Mishnah that stam will be alu. You're confusing me. Stam will be alu. So stam will be alu, and the thing over there is that get will not work. So now the question is, when stam is alu, so over there when you shecht half of it l'shem korban pesach and the other half stam, it's alu l'balim and it works the korban pesach. But now we're trying to prove over here, so we still don't have a basis. That case will be different. Says the Gemara. Inami, or over there it's different. Not to get into it, but over there we can say it's also different by that case because of the Lashonos. So we still don't have a basis. We still don't have a basis to prove that if I set it aside as an olah and I shecht it stam, it's not only going to be kosher, it's going to be olah, l'shem olah, and I don't have to bring another olah. So where do we have a basis for that? Elameha, from this Mishnah or this brisa, l'shem shisha dvarim hazevach nizbach. When you shech something, you have to have in mind 6 things. L'shem zevach, says Rashi, l'shem masha hukdash. That was the key Rashi, those 3 words, explains the whole daf. When I bring it aside and I give the zevach, I have to have in mind l'shem olah. I have to have in mind that I'm bringing it as a korban olah. L'shem zoveach. I have to have in mind that I'm doing it for myself and not for somebody else. L'shem Hashem. It needs to be la kadosh baruch hu. It needs to be for God. L'shem ishim. It has to be for the fire. I can't have intention that I'm bringing it to barbecue it so that I'll be able to eat it. I have to bring it lahaktiram, that I'm bringing it for the fire. L'shem reach, I have to bring it for the smell. As Rashi says, I can't go ahead and pre-cook it, because if you pre-cook it, it loses some of its smell. You have to throw on raw so that it gets the entire smell to Hashem. L'shem nichoach, has to be l'shem Hashem hanachas ruach kadosh baruch hu. That's similar to l'shem Hashem. Has to be that it'll give her a nichoach to Hashem. V'chatas v'asham l'shem chet. And for the chatas and asham, I have to have in mind also that I'm doing it l'shem the chet. Those are all things you have to have in mind when you bring a korban. Amar Rabbi Yossi, af mishalo haya belibo l'shem achas mikolelu kasher. If I didn't have in mind and again, I didn't have in mind seemingly in my heart. I'm not saying anything. Going back to what we were saying. I didn't have in mind in my heart, l'shem achas mikol elu, it's going to be kosher. Now, seemingly, we can't say that it meant I had in mind something else, because that was our Mishnah. So it sounds like if you don't have in mind stam, if you just do it stam and you don't have in your mind anything, you're not thinking, it'll still work. What does that imply? It sounds like the Tanakama would agree to that, and therefore we see what? We see that it's going to be good, even if you are stam, even if you don't think about the fact that it's l'shem zevach, that it's for an ola. If you don't think about it in your mind, l'mais, it's still going to work. That's a clear Mishnah that tells us exactly what we're telling us. Mikolelu kasher. Shetnai Bezinu. What's the reason? Listen to this. This is fascinating. Because Bezin made a tnai. Asnu Bezin dilo lemu lishmo, dilma asu lemeimar shalo lishmo. There was a point in history, unclear exactly when, but it used to be that we would have to say l'shem yichu kucha brichu shchinte. I'm shafting it for an ola. And there was a certain time in history where Bezdin said people don't have the right kavanas and they're going to say the wrong things. They're better off not saying anything. So when you bring the korban, better off whatever's in your mind doesn't ruin it, it sounds like. It sounds like. Whatever's in your mind doesn't ruin it. If you think l'shem ola in your mind, it doesn't ruin it. It's only if you say l'shem yichu kucha brichu shchinte, I'm bringing it for shlamim, then it ruins it. So they said, since we're afraid that people are always going to think of the wrong thing, they're not smart enough, they don't know what's going on with karbanos, don't say anything. Therefore what? Don't say anything is what? By definition is stam. It can't be that it needs to be done lishma, and Beis Din ruled you're not allowed to say anything. Or else Beis Din is basically ruining every single korban. So the fact that what? The fact that Beis Din came along and said at a certain point that you go ahead and you don't say anything clearly shows that stam is going to work. Says the Gemara. One second. Deal masul meimar shalishma v'isa gadaitach stam apostle kaimi Beis Din umasni milsa demifsal bay. So it sounds like again we're saying that stam is that you didn't say anything. Whatever you were thinking, your thinking is not going to ruin it. You set aside an ola. Really, we thought ideally you should do what? Hareini muchan mezuman l'shech this l'shem ola. We asked a question: what happens if you don't say hareini muchan mezuman l'shem anything? You just shecht it. We want to know is that kosher or not. We said it's kosher. How do you know? Because you see over here that he says that if you go ahead and you don't have achas melu, if it's just stam, one of these 6 things, it's going to be good. And we further prove it by saying, you see this from the fact that Beis Din at a certain point in history said you no longer should say l'shem yichud anything, for anything when you shecht it. Just set it aside, bring it as a shchita, it's done stam and it works. Clearly you see that stam works. Yes, Rabbi? Okay, so it comes out again that, just to recap, it comes out that if you bring a korban, you're better off not saying anything. Even if you think the wrong things, it's not going to ruin it. And lamaisa, you set it aside as an ola, you shacht it, don't say anything. If you're quiet, you're okay, and it works as an ola. It's only if you go ahead, and when it says now, so now our Mishnah means, kol azvachash nizuchu shelo lishman ksherim aval lo alu, that means that when I shacht it, I say l'shem chiyichu kucha brichu shchinte yeshlamim. When I set it aside as an ola, then it's not going to count as an ola, and it's still going to be kosher, except if it's korban pesach, etc. But just don't say l'shem yichud.
You have to physically set it aside.
Seemingly, again, it sounds like what we're talking about is where... No. Okay, just, again, whether it's in mind or whatever, we'll obviously discuss that. But we're talking about it was set aside, whether it was in the mind or whether it was physically. You set it aside as an ola, and now you're bringing it for a shlamim. Says the Gemara, let's just finish up. V'gabe get the stam apostle minalan. So now we saw a source that stam works. If you don't say anything and you shacht it, it works for whatever you had set it aside for, whatever you had either physically or mentally set it aside for. But where do we see, what's the basis to tell me that a get has to be written lishma? Why can't I go into the store and find a get that was written for Ruvain in Thornhill, for a Leah in Thornhill, and buy it off the shelf? There's a lot of Ruvain and Leahs, and again, I want to get divorced now, so why can't I go ahead and buy that? What's the problem with that? Says the Gemara, "V'gabe get the stam apostle minalan eli mebehaditnan." You might prove it from that which it says in the Mishnah. Haya over bashuk, if I'm walking in the shuk and I'm having a nice day and I'm thinking about how bad my marriage is, vishama sofrim makrin ish ploni girish ploni smimakom ploni, and then I hear all of a sudden there's a savior coming and I hear somebody yelling, Reuven from Thornhill is divorcing Leah from Thornhill, and I pop up and say, Baruch Hashem, it's a sign from God, I should divorce my wife. V'amar zeshmi v'zeshem mishti pasul legarish bo, and I get all excited, so I run over there and I want to buy the get. And then they say, and I buy the get and I bring it to Beis, and they say, sorry man, you couldn't have bought this get. Kedal dilma legarish bo. I can't use it. So what do you see? You see that stam, if it wasn't written specifically for my purposes, I can't use it to divorce my wife. Says the Gemara, that's not a good proof. Dilma kidirav papa. That case is different. Amar of papa, hacha besofrim hasuin lislamid askina velo ichto l'shum krisus klau. What was happening when you passed by in the shuk? What did you hear? You heard a guy on Sunday morning giving a class on safras, how to do safras. So he says, here's the example for today. Reuven from Thornhill is going to divorce Leah from Thornhill. Everybody write that in your get. And you pop up and say, Baruch Hashem, okay, it's a sign from heaven. Yeah. I run over there. So we said you prove from there that it's possible if it's written stam. So you can't prove from there. Maybe a stam one is written is fine. The reason those are not good is because those weren't written l'shem gerus. For l'shem gerushin. Those were just written l'shem practice. But in a chanami, if a guy sat in his studio all day and says, I'm writing all of these stam, but they're l'shem gerushin, but I'm writing them stam for any Reuven that wants to come from Thornhill and divorce Leah from Thornhill, maybe in fact it would work. So we don't have a proof yet that it wouldn't work. One last case. Ella, another proof. Meha, from this. Yeser al kain, kasav legarish es ishto v'nimlach. If Reuven from Thornhill writes to divorce Leah from Thornhill, and then he changes his mind, and he goes for therapy and everything's fine, matzo ben yiro v'amar lo shmi kishmecha, but I get all excited because I heard about it, and I say, Baruch Hashem, Reuven, you might be happy now, but I'm still not happy. Can I please have your get? So what does it say? V'shem ishi kishem ishtecha, pasul legarish bo. It's possible to write it. Therefore, it's possible for me to take that and to buy it from you half price on eBay and to take it for myself. So what do you see? That if it's stam, it's not going to work. That's the proof. Says the Gemara, no. Dilma shani asam de'inta glei l'shem gerushin de'ahu. No, that's still not a good proof because maybe that's different than the case of stam. The fact that you wrote it for your wife and then gave it to me, it's not going to work for me because you wrote it for your wife. It was your Reuven for your wife Leah. But maybe, in fact, if a guy sits in a shop and he just writes Gittin all day, and he writes stam for any Reuven that will come, for any Leah from Thornhill, maybe in Achanami it'll still work. So we still don't have a proof that a stam, totally stam, nothing to do with it was written l'safras, nothing to do that it was written specifically for you, for your wife. A totally stam thing, if I sit in all day, I write Gerish and I write Gittin, and I just write stam Reuvens for stam Leahs, we still haven't proven that that shouldn't work. Even though the Gemara said it's not going to work, we still haven't proven that it doesn't work, as opposed to Zvachim, which we said again, Lamaisa, if it's brought stam, better not to say anything, and if it's brought stam, in fact, it'll work. Okay, Zvachim.